nyonje jembor zordon hingmi jang zone monum jembor nga gyapta bakar tarngam santo shirmar dor tomba tugje chanla ki sham tsar ne chen ro tser ngi jang kam se jawar tugji shan lo yella jingme panso jala soran de gon gyer to bam povro shinjir lo.
The Dharma, profound and subtle, seldom met in countless ages, now heard and practiced, may we realize the Tathagata's truth. For all beings' liberation,
Generate bodhicitta.
Today, the treatise we are studying in our session is often called the 100 Verses on Wisdom. I personally translated this 100 Verses on Wisdom some years ago, and recently I have done additional proofreading. Chinese Buddhism text was never translated. In English, no translation. It is said that perhaps there is a German translation. As for Japanese and other foreign languages, basically, it actually has never really been translated. This 100 Verses on Wisdom does exist in Tibetan. The Tibetan version was translated during the time of Dharma King Trisong Detsen, which should have been the 9th century. In the 9th century, during King Trisong Detsen's reign, there were three especially remarkable great translators. One of them was called Gawai Paisa. He was the one who translated it into Tibetan. At that time, the Tripitaka and treatises were translated from Indian sources, translated by many translators led by these three great ones. So the source of this text is definitely pure, because these three truly remarkable great translators, Gawa Beis Jiao, Ruolu, Tianzan Xiangnamba, they were truly extraordinary translators of their time, known for their exceptional skill and dedication. When the Tripitaka was first being translated, they first compiled a Sanskrit-Tibetan dictionary, began the translation work. That's why later on, the entire Tibetan Tripitaka, the terminology in the Tripitaka and treatises was standardized. This is probably one of the greatest contributions in world history. We are compiling a Vajrayana dictionary, and the Vajrayana dictionary is still very important. Before we translate tantric texts, if we compile a Vajrayana dictionary and then translate the terminology within it, can all be standardized. But because we didn't have the necessary conditions before at that time, it just never happened. We've been working on it bit by bit, but there have actually been a lot of other things going on in between. Still, we hope to finish it as best as we possibly can. Of course, in the process of doing this Vajrayana dictionary, or perhaps some of the dedicated volunteers who are working alongside me, supporting my making books or making media, I hope every Dharma friend can cultivate a genuinely pure altruistic motivation. Otherwise, as time goes on, over time, and I feel this, we near life's end. Many people sometimes take advantage of various opportunities and their motivation doesn't seem pure. This does happen, though it's not very common in most cases. 90% of people have pure intentions, but there are still a few individuals. I want to use resources. The future may be a comparison that there are various kinds of benefits involved, including a range of positive advantages. Usually for us monastics and some lay practitioners, it's rare to think of these things. However, there are still such people, especially those with particularly strong worldly habits, who will often consider their own interests and those of their groups. Continually thinking about these things is not very good. So I also hope that whether it's myself or any of the others making aspirations in front of the teachers, our motivation can be a bit pure, having various ulterior motives. I'm not saying such people exist, but this is also inevitable. Even for myself, with all the things I do now, basically the things I do are becoming fewer and fewer. With less these thoughts remain, because we are not really such perfect beings. This is apparent. So now we also hope that everyone, books, recordings, making videos, or engaging in other acts of bodhicitta, if your motivation is not pure, you should stop right at the beginning. I think that might be a bit better. Some things are just passed around by others, but some facts are right there in front of us. So when I think about it later on in the future, having a pure motivation is the most important thing. So what was I talking about just now? Kawa Polsek, one of the three great translators, was remarkable in early propagation. Later, during the later propagation period, even translators like Pal Sang praised him highly, a translator. So I think that the 100 Treatise on Wisdom, its origins should be pure. Composed by Nagarjuna Bodhisattva. People know Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, sometimes called Nagarjuna Bodhisattva. Why is he called Bodhisattva Longmeng? It is said he invited the Prajnaparamita Sutra from the Dragon Palace and also quite literally took earth from the realm of dragons, as the legends say, to build a total of 10 million magnificent stupas which were then distributed throughout the 10 directions. That's why he is called Longmeng, one explanation. Another explanation. As for Longshu, Nagarjuna, it is said that he was born under a tree. He belonged to the Brahmin caste and his lineage was of the dragon kind. Everyone knows that on Nagarjuna Bodhisattva's head in Tibetan Buddhism, in many images of Bodhisattva Longmeng, there are 9 snake heads, 9 snake types on his head. They say his lineage is of dragon kind. Why is he linked to a tree? He was born under a tree. He is called Longshu. Another explanation. In most of the treatises in the Chinese Buddhist tradition, the name Longshu is used. The biography of Bodhisattva Longmeng, it is included in the Tripitaka, the Buddhist canon. Regarding when Bodhisattva Longmeng was born, according to our Tibetan historical records, as the historical source Tonga Great Dictionary, it is stated there that after the Buddha entered parinirvana, he arrived about 400 years later. There are various accounts regarding how long Bodhisattva Longmeng lived. He lived 300 years, while others claim he lived for 600 years. According to Jonangpa Dolpopa, in his comprehensive work, History of Indian Buddhism, the noted scholar states 300, 600 years. The calculation is based on counting half a year as one full year. Therefore, when later scholars carefully examined and analyzed this in their research, they concluded he lived over 300 years, over 100 years. There are such accounts. In any case, some people believe he lived during the Tuand to 3rd centuries CE. Honest Tuand centuries. During that period, he was indeed a truly extraordinary, great bodhisattva. As for his exact birth date and the date of his parinirvana, unknown, not in history. Usually in some Chinese and Tibetan historical records about him, he was smart as a child and that he mastered all the worldly knowledge, including the 4 Vedas. After becoming a monk within 90 days, he had indeed mastered all the Buddhist scriptures and treatises. Later, when he went to the Dragon Palace within 90 days as well, he comprehended all the scriptures and treatises there, which were 10 times more than those in the human world. Such accounts. Later, he attained the true patience of the deathless Dharma. At Nalanda Monastery, he defeated many non-Buddhist schools in debate, including the miracles he performed at that time. While non-Buddhists showed their powers, lotus-born, he himself transformed into a magnificent, majestic, 6-tusked white elephant and then began to trample and so on, displaying various miraculous powers to the audience for all to see. At Nalanda, recorded in the biography of Bodhisattva Nagarjuna that we later translated, it is also mentioned in the biographies of the 80 accomplished masters of India, later reforming Buddhism. Nalanda, he expelled or removed as many as 8,000 monks. Then he subdued 600 non-Buddhist practitioners. His biography is absolutely, truly incredible as well. As everyone knows, among the six ornaments, whether as the founder of the Madhyamaka school, notably, or through his own power of wisdom, truly revealed the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha in a clear and profound manner, guiding countless beings in Tibetan Buddhism in the past. Commentaries entering middle way, many of which have quoted from it. There is a passage in the Lankavatara Sutra.
Lobchok Bardi, Lobchok Beti, Gerdon, Gerdon Harden, Cheta, Batima, the Jimbo Party.
In our Chinese text, Shikshananda's translation, the Lankavatara Sutra contains the passage. What does the original text say? It says, in the southern country of India, there was a renowned and virtuous bhikshu whose name was Nagarjuna, who could refute the schools of existence and non-existence. It says that in southern India, there was a bhikshu of great merit named Bodhisattva Nagarjuna. He refuted the extremes of existence and non-existence. He revealed my great Mahayana Dharma, attained the first bhumi of joy, and was reborn in the Pure Land. That is to say, in this world, as we know, my unsurpassed Mahayana teachings were propagated, and in the end he attained the first bhumi, the stage of joy, and was reborn in the Pure Land. Tibetan translation, as well as by Shikshananda, because everyone knows Shikshananda was a translator. Kshittigarbha. During the Tang dynasty, his translations consistently matched perfectly with our Tibetan language versions. Previously, Venerable Master Fazun should have mentioned this in the commentary on the profound meaning. I recall this doctrinal evidence was translated, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it should be included in the commentary on the profound meaning, right? At that time, his translation method was compared with the Tibetan version, and it was quite good. But during the Tang dynasty, the translations done as early as Shikshananda's time completely corresponds with the Tibetan versions. Therefore, Bodhisattva Nagarjuna was already prophesied by the Buddha himself in the sutras. Moreover, this prophecy was stated very clearly. In other words, the Buddha's teachings, when later faced with debates and disputes, Bodhisattva Nagarjuna appear and spread Mahayana teachings in the human world. In the end, he attained the stage of joy, pure land. This is according to southern Indian tradition. In fact, regarding his rebirth in the pure land of ultimate bliss, there were also various different accounts and stories at that time. So I think today we should also feel quite joyful. Everyone knows that the well-known and highly respected Bodhisattva Nagarjuna in Buddhist philosophy and teachings came to this world about 2,000 years ago. The treatises from around 2,000 years ago, today all of us are coming together to examine and study them anew. This study, perhaps some of the things mentioned here, in the 21st century, some aspects may not be very suitable, while others might be quite appropriate at times. What is it like? We can see ourselves, Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, and another work featured in this collection is called The Tree of Wisdom, which was written by the respected author Shiri Dongbo and is known for its thoughtful insights. There are a few of these, there are hundreds, can't recall. I had originally thought to translate it, but in the end, I never did. There's also one called Jiwo Soda, which means Treatise on Nourishing Life in the Chinese Tibetan Dictionary. This was also composed by Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, worldly teachings, and in fact all of these are maxims. They should be from India. Some appear in texts. These are Indian humanistic maxims, methods of being a person. They also contain instructions and key points for spiritual practice. So I think everyone has studied very well. I also know that everyone has received the Supreme Dzogchen teachings and empowerment conferred. These are high. But if the roots of these are rotten, our personality is gone. Although these Dharma teachings are extremely excellent, doubtless, but as for our own vessel, fundamentally, we simply no longer have any real foundation. There is nothing left to support us. Perhaps these teachings will only plant a seed in your mind, but you will not gain any real benefit from them in any significant way. That is why I have always, I taught Sakya maxims and also taught the water and wood maxims advice on conduct of kings and 2 codes of conduct. I taught and translated these. Moreover, in my own practice and personal experience, practice lacking. I've not practiced, but in the process of teaching and translating the Dharma, such as in various contexts, I always feel that being a good person is extremely important. If one doesn't do well, then it is likely that higher Dharma teachings are simply unattainable. If one lacks wisdom in being a person, wants to be good, thinks one's good, even those who are especially wicked nowadays, all believe themselves kind, very wise, thoughtful, and so on. They always tend to think in this particular way. However, when we take a closer look at the actual situation, the truth is quite different from what... If we don't look at ourselves in these mirrors, we may have a whole lot of black marks, so many of them on our faces, which are easily noticed by others, but we may not notice them. If we want to be good people, wisdom is truly extremely important. It's not Nagarjuna of ancient India thought so. Countries all over the world today also recognize the true importance of wisdom from when we're young, in kindergarten, all the way through university and even postdoctoral studies, we are learning wisdom. Once we start working, we meet daily, we learn, and wisdom is still needed. However, sometimes perhaps a person's own faculties are in some ways somewhat limited. So wisdom never truly arises within oneself. Difficult. So over these past few days, everyone should also take a look. Nagarjuna Bodhisattva said, wisdom is important because the main focus is interwoven discussions of the merits of having wisdom and the faults of lacking wisdom. Then, regarding how to generate wisdom, in these aspects, he explains things really quite clearly from different dimensions and perspectives. In this way, I hope the opportunity for us all to study together like this definitely will not last forever. This is not me saying something inauspicious, but all worldly phenomena are truly impermanent. Not only is there general impermanence, but also individual impermanence for each person. This includes me teaching, and you listeners' impermanence applies to us all. Once impermanence arises, at the very least, this particular connection will be completely gone, lost for all time. And this is a fact. So I think we should make use of this brief time we have right now, as this time is precious. I also think you should definitely listen to Khenpo's class. You need to cultivate bodhicitta, and there are many things to do. In fact, even attending a single class is not easy. I also can't bear to give too many teachings, as it takes up a lot of time. But sometimes it's just like sunlight breaking through the clouds right now. When there is even a slight opportunity, if we don't seize it, perhaps we may never have it again at all at any point in the future. This is just the way things naturally are. So I think today, let's all study together, consider the wisdom of Nagarjuna Bodhisattva from over 2,000 years ago. What do you think actually wisdom is like now? Are there any similarities? Everyone can continue to learn. Homage to Manjushri. This was probably added by the Tibetan translator. Homage to Manjushri Bodhisattva. Whoever is skilled in understanding, may they give rise to 100 kinds of wisdom. This explains the source and meaning of all dharmic principles in this treatise. You can call them maxims or dharmic principles. No matter what kind of person you are, through various forms of study, contemplation, debate, and so on, this treatise can, in particular, enable you to generate a great deal of personal wisdom within your own mind stream. We mentioned wisdom. 100 is a symbolic number. In reality, it refers to a vast amount of wisdom. It is the reason you can develop countless forms of wisdom here, that is to say, Nagarjuna Bodhisattva has already explained here what wisdom this is, that is both worldly and transcendent wisdom. Analects, its teachings might address worldly principles, and as for liberation in the future or true happiness in the next life, it does not mention these aspects. Worldly, transcendent concerns life next. The source of all such maxims is this treatise, because nowadays when many wise people analyze this after Buddha's parinirvana, the source of many maxims in the human world, Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, nowadays some scholars search through Tibetan treatises maxims, and they do find some in Tibetan texts as well, but the earliest ones should be from Nagarjuna Bodhisattva. Here it is also said that many worldly maxims, as well as many of the maxims in Tibetan Buddhism, actually originate from these sources. Let's take a look at the Royal Council and Sakya maxims. These basically also convey the same meaning as what's discussed here. There are only minor differences between them. So at that time, Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, in order to help everyone develop wisdom, to understand worldly and transcendental principles, carefully composed this treatise, the source of all maxims, and thoughtfully considered. This 100 verses of wisdom explains to everyone that the wise, through deep and thoughtful contemplation, can clearly and distinctly perceive and understand all things in their entirety. Fearing it would be too lengthy, they thus condensed it into concise statements. Generally, any truly wise person in this world, some individuals may rely on the Guru's blessing, enlightenment, awakening, become able to comprehend all the countless scriptures and treatises at once, and there are precedents quickly accept these cases. Most of the wise people in the world first read and study some treatises, and within these treatises they are able to perceive all matters, both worldly and transcendental. Nowadays, many of us, some people like to read books and enjoy buying books. And this is actually very important. If you have a lot of books, it shows you value wisdom. If you find books burdensome or feel annoyed by them and end up getting rid of all of them, I even regret it. In my early years, when I was just a child, fell to renunciation and got rid of all the books at home several times. Later on, I did keep some of them, including teachings by the previous Dharma king, or manuscripts I translated myself. These are the ones I kept. Looking back now, sometimes I feel that in this world, time spent this life compared to next life, the time in the next life should be, there isn't much else we can prepare. But at that time, like in many foreign countries, for example, whether ordinary people or celebrities, they have libraries where they personally gather all the books they owned during their lifetime. Actually, this is very meaningful. In Germany, UK, or elsewhere, they have small houses, existed centuries. It belonged to a reader. All of his books are here, so we think actually books are really wonderful. We should still preserve some books ourselves. If we have the opportunity, you can keep them in one place. But these books do contain a lot of content, and the treatises we study throughout our lives are numerous. Therefore, as wise people, how do we gain understanding? By relying on treatises, we can understand and perceive all principles of phenomena. If we explained every maxim's meaning, every word spoken, the text would be extremely lengthy. Contents long. If so, the author has chosen a very simple and straightforward approach, using a rather concise method to present everything to everyone here in just 100 verses. So for us to study, it's not that difficult, right? Everyone learns 100 verses. Actually, it's really quite simple. Therefore, just like the vast ocean of maxims and treatises all around us, they have been meticulously and carefully refined into an exceptionally highly concentrated form. Or the essence has been gathered together. Nowadays, whether it's tea or something else, like all have a kind of refined essence, like the finest cream. And this especially refined part is provided for everyone to enjoy and appreciate, including, as we can now see, we can now compress it into originally several hundred gigabytes in size, some lengthy novels and movies. But you can actually compress them quite effectively by using certain special and advanced techniques, which are specifically designed for this purpose. By the same principle, any of our products can also be concentrated in this way, right? So here, in fact, among the boundless wisdom and skillful teachings on how to be a person, Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, the revered and great master, with his wisdom, explained them in especially simple language. So you could say that these are the pith instructions of Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, a method for being a good person. Each of us naturally thinks, of course, I know exactly how to conduct myself as a person, because ever since I was young, I've been living as a person. But when we truly measure ourselves against these maxims, we may find we don't really know how to be a good person. This includes our parents and the education we receive at school. In the curriculum, there is actually very little education about how to be a good person. If your parents rarely share moral teachings with you, enter world, especially nowadays when everyone is constantly watching all kinds of information on their mobile phones, or movies and TV shows, such as those designed just to grab attention. In this case, we really aren't being our true selves as people. It should be some consumers drawn to it, being a person shown in ads. But this way is often not actually applicable in your real life. So I think, including myself, when I often reflect on myself, I know to be good, but in reality, am I actually doing a poor job at it? When I frequently look inward, I can also see that I think I should be a good person, be kind and outstanding. I even think that what I do is actually quite good for everyone, unless someone really has a personality or people with mental problems. No one would ever want to be a bad person or to be a terrible persona. One thinks that way. But because of your education, your upbringing, other reasons, some people might end up becoming so-called gangsters, and some become all sorts of other things who, in the eyes of world, people who are not liked, but they themselves still actually think that they are okay. Some people's lives are impossible. Some people really have no money and have no choice but to become thieves. Some people are truly at the end of their rope with no way out, and in the end become people looked down upon by society. So I think when it comes to being a person, the basic thing is to look at how to be a person. This isn't for others, it's for you to reflect on. A lot of the treatises we've studied claiming to spread the Dharma, promote it next. But I really think for most people here, the main way to spread the Dharma is to tame the mind. If you have the opportunity, you can share a little with others. Because many of you are the same age as me, or slightly older or younger, and life lasts decades, is very short. If you want to study and then spread the Dharma, there definitely isn't enough time for that. Back 20 or 30 years ago or so, I will learn first, then spread the Dharma. I had this idea. But now, these days, we don't really truly have that anymore. Whether it's spreading the Dharma or doing things, basically, we've already done what we can. That's the mindset now. So I think for those who are around my age, at least rest of our lives, we should be people who are decent and finish our lives that way. Kind heart. Recite Avalokiteshvara's mantra and prepare to depart this world. Maybe these words sound very pessimistic, but perhaps this is just, after all, being realistic. In actual practice, this is all we can really do. Other than that, there's not much anything else. Many dreams may not come true. Next, let's talk about this. Concise, rich, varied logic. This text contains exactly 100 verses, which are called the 100 verses of wisdom. As for this treatise, you could say its language is extremely concise. The content is also rich. Moreover, it employs all kinds of reasoning as well as metaphors and valid logical principles. These valid principles are used to embellish and adorn the text. This treatise by Bodhisattva Nagarjuna contains 100 verses. That's why it's called 100 verses of wisdom. In fact, in treatises and scriptures, it's quite common for names to be chosen metaphorically. Some are named for their meaning, and some are named after the Master Aryadeva's 400 verses on the Middle Way, contains 400 verses, Nagarjuna's works, 70 verses on emptiness and 60 verses on reasoning. And in the Vinaya, there is the 300 verses on Vinaya, and Thunmisamhota's 30 verses on Tibetan grammar, 50 verses on Guru devotion. And in our world, there are some teachings presented in verse form. Texts include the 100 Parable Sutra and 100 Deed Sutra, which contain various stories and cases. Among these treatises and scriptures, some are not just numbers, some are actually more and some are less, some more, some fewer. But the 100 verses of wisdom, it has 100 verses, so it contains a total of 100 verses. For us as learners, simply 100 verses is actually not a very large number. However, without a doubt, this is indeed a very precious and extraordinarily valuable teaching. These precious teachings are something we must study. They are truly extremely important. Otherwise, if we read worldly treatises, read many, it might end up contaminating our minds. In the standards for being a good student and child, non-sacred books, do not look at them. If it is not a sacred text, then don't look at it. Otherwise, it will cloud your clear wisdom and corrupt your will. It will cloud intelligence and destroy resolve. Especially in this day and age, it's really the case. Every day, people watch things like Douyin, Kuaishu, and short videos. In this way, it truly corrupts one's will. Apart from the things you personally like to watch, you don't gain other knowledge, because now, through big data, what it suggests, like older people look up health and wellness content on their phones, then it gives it to him. This matches his spiritual capacity. So every time they open the app, it pushes health content to them. If it's a middle-aged person, then it's things like financial management and getting rich, recommends content. If it's a child, then it's toys and things related to play. It's the same principle. If we ourselves don't make an effort to read books by wise sages, in this way we could say that our minds originally don't possess such great wisdom, and on top of that, they're further clouded by all sorts of useless knowledge from society, which obscures your insight. Actually, generally speaking, people need to keep learning throughout their lives. When it comes to learning, one aspect is studying in your professional field, extracurricular learning, as well as learning across different fields. This is important. For us Buddhists, first we need to study comprehensive Buddhist theoretical knowledge and methods of practice, and also learn about topics currently of interest in the world. Be it news, sociology, anthropology, or all sorts of other disciplines. This is actually very important. Even if you don't possess such wisdom, you still need to study the treatises and scriptures related to yourself. This is especially important to keep in mind. Now, here comes the fourth verse. The virtues, both visible and invisible, have wisdom as their root. Therefore, in order to truly and consistently achieve these two goals, one must essentially uphold wisdom. In the world we live, no matter what the circumstances are, most things are somewhat visible, things that people can easily see and hear, matters that are perceived through seeing, hearing, and awareness. The unseen virtues we cannot perceive, but their foundation is true wisdom indeed. What are the seen and unseen? As everyone knows, generally speaking, it might be, for example, someone looks very attractive, or the food tastes great, or perhaps something is especially comfortable, or a place feels particularly very pleasant. So on ideas, most of us can basically notice these things. Then there are things hard to perceive. The principle that all phenomena are impermanent, the emptiness of all things, the truth that all conditioned existence involves suffering, and even past and future lives, worldly theories, including certain scientific knowledge, such as, and some profound knowledge of astronomy and geography. Except for a few specialists in the world, such as experts or teach us apart from these people, most people will not be able to perceive these things. Buddha's views about past and future lives and the principles of momentary impermanence, except for those who have studied these topics in particular. Most ordinary people, usually all their conversations and discussions are about eating, drinking, and having fun. Which place is more comfy, which clothes look good, what clothes to buy online, or eating hot pot. These are all things we can see, things that people in the world, basically, as long as they are human beings, they will, in most cases, talk about Tibetans. They talk about whether the butter tea is good, whether the sampa is sweet, whether it's made from black barley or white barley, whether the yak is in fact actually fat, or whether the yak truly does look good. Farmers have a way of speaking workers' language. Worldly people have topics. All of these conversations are very superficial, shallow. It's like the color of the blue patch on the surface of the ocean. There's more beneath the surface. Here we say 97% of the universe is dark matter that we cannot see. So for such knowledge, we cannot perceive it. But if you want to see it, things people can see, things most can't see, all of this at its root is wisdom. This is something that everyone should really understand. Those who truly possess wisdom can clearly see all of this unfolding before them. In the past, for example, the Buddha himself, and later, like Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, including Longchenpa and Mipham Rinpoche, treatises, when we study them, we find them fascinating. It's not we are wise, great, but the more we study their works, the deeper they become. And it feels especially interesting if someone lacks this kind of wisdom. If you explain, they won't understand. This includes some of the principles in Buddhism, sublime, but except for fate and a few individuals who possess some degree of wisdom, he just can't do it. On Buddhism, that's Prince Shakyamuni Buddha, who came to India 2,500 years ago. And beyond that, they absolutely never go any deeper into, I think, the fundamental reason we can ultimately perceive or not perceive these qualities truly is, indeed, undoubtedly, wisdom. You could also say that in many cases, gaining or not gaining these qualities depends on wisdom. We must do our utmost to the best of our abilities to uphold this kind of wisdom. This kind of wisdom is without a doubt truly very important. If we are wise, we can discern. If we truly lack wisdom, we just follow others. There's nothing we can do. That's all there is to it. No matter where you are, which country, it's always like this. Didn't I go to Jerusalem a few years ago? They had a saying that in Israel, meaning among the Jewish people, when a child is just starting out, the mother asks them a most important question. What is the question? It means that when you grow up, if one day you have no house, no family, if you don't even have clothes on your back, nothing, what do you think is most important? Some of them might say money is key or reputation matters. But finally, the parents tell them none of these are the most important. The most important thing is wisdom. That's why from a young age, they all truly cherish, deeply value, and hold in the highest regard wisdom greatly. Why worldwide nowadays, many CEOs or perhaps many high-level executives have very close connections with Jewish people. I actually think that Indians also highly value wisdom as well. According to the analysis of many people worldwide, India's wisdom is an innate ability to truly and deeply discern. They have a kind of analytical thinking ability, which is completely different from the rigid kind of wisdom found in many other places. It seems they naturally possess this wisdom themselves. So I think that Nagarjuna Bodhisattva and the Buddha, there may be some differences here. Some might think, how could India, a country poor, with poor sanitation and safety, is lacking largest, that's not the case, it isn't. From at least some of our current perspectives, I saw recently that Singapore elected a president of Indian descent. Rishi Sunak, who is of Indian descent, served as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, making history as the first person with Indian heritage to lead the country. For example, the Prime Minister of Portugal and the Prime Minister of Ireland, these people, Indian descent, including the current Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, she is also of Indian descent. So looking at the world, if people from another country are taking on roles around the world as top leaders or even as entrepreneurs, like the CEOs of Microsoft and Google, many of them are now, in fact, also of Indian descent. So we simply can't ignore this. Really, what Nagarjuna Bodhisattva said may not be correct. This is something so ancient, or that Indian people may not necessarily be remarkable. We really shouldn't think like that. If we want to study these treatises, we should carefully study the treatises of wise people. In that case, we won't be led by the nose. Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra states, if one has wisdom, one can distinguish good from bad and won't follow others' teachings. If we have wisdom, we judge what's good and we won't just follow others blindly. If we lack wisdom, we go where led, like an ox or a camel following people with its nose pierced. If we don't have wisdom, then we just go along with others and drift with the current. It's just like being cattle or camels. They're led by a ring through their nose. Just simply following others, walking along the path that others lead us on. Many animals in the world are like this. So among people in the world today, those without wisdom are also very pitiable. It's truly quite pitiful to be constantly led away by others as well, time and time again. A person with true wisdom at any time, even when facing all kinds of disasters and adverse circumstances, still has a way to handle things. Even if they are imprisoned, Tibetan masters, those remarkable and wise individuals, Due to that era, they all faced the disasters of that time all together during those difficult times. But even in prison, even there, they had their own truly special, distinctive way of living each and every day. There is a greatness in dying as well. If one lives, there's greatness. Therefore, our wisdom. Many people at different times in their lives find themselves wondering about a simple yet profound question. What is it that everyone should truly want? This is extremely importantly, it is absolutely essential that we uphold and maintain this wisdom for the benefit of everyone. Then the 5th verse says, Dharma, wealth, desires, and liberation, their root is wisdom. Therefore, first with reverence, uphold the great wisdom of prajna paramita, because there are 4 types of completeness. Everyone knows this. What are the 4 types of completeness? The completeness of the true Dharma. Generally, the Mahayana Dharma and Hinayana Dharma, all of the true Dharma. Then there is the completeness of wealth. In our world, there are defiled forms of wealth, as well as the truly undefiled and pure 7 noble riches. Completeness of desire. The desires and merits of the good realms of human and heavenly beings, all the delightful desires found among humans, or all the delightful desires found in the heavenly realms, these things. Then there is liberation. As for liberation, Hinayana Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas and Mahayana Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, all worldly and supramundane things, or all the various aspects of wealth, abundance, and prosperity in this life, the completeness and happiness of this life and future lives, what is the root, the very source of all these? At the heart of it all, it is wisdom. From the perspective of Buddhism as understood in traditional Buddhist teachings, and if we look at it from a worldly point of view, no matter what kind of knowledge in the world, its root is still wisdom. As everyone knows, whether it's in business or in education or in the military, or the root of any discipline in the world, it is true wisdom. A person with wisdom becomes a capable person. Without wisdom, no matter how remarkably good-looking or attractive you may be in the eyes of others, or how much wealth you have, it's of little use. Therefore, we should first uphold prajna paramita with a respectful mind. Here, Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, ultimately, in the end, is earnestly seeking something that is truly and quite profound. As for prajna paramita, it is the wisdom of prajna paramita. In other words, it means prajna paramita. Of course, if you grasp the wisdom of prajna paramita, then, as everyone knows, worldly wisdom goes without saying. If someone has realized the ultimate truth, conventional truth is like we discussed. If a person truly possesses ultimate bodhicitta, conventional bodhicitta arises. If someone indeed possesses the profound wisdom of emptiness, then great compassion will also arise naturally in the heart. This is dependent origination. So here in his journey, he seeks the mother of prajna from another perspective. First, uphold great prajna paramita with a respectful mind. Prajna Mother Buddha, we have a specific practice called prajna paramita. Quite recently, I have been diligently working on translating the text known as, I have explained this to everyone. Once, when Shakyamuni Buddha was at Vulture Peak, he was teaching great assembly of bhikshus and bodhisattvas. What teaching did he give? Ah. He uttered the syllable ah. After he finished, everyone was overjoyed. He said the syllable ah. But this syllable ah is in Mifam Rinpoche's practice. However, this is somewhat profound. It is practiced by visualizing Manjushri Bodhisattva. There was a remarkable figure in the past, a Tibetan sage named Yondan Rabjampa. He was skilled in Buddhist logic. When we studied Treasury of Cognition, we often cited some of his scriptural proofs. There is Jamyang Kainta, Mifam Rinpoche's teacher, syllable practice. One should visualize oneself as prajna paramita words. We often have her image in our assembly halls. In addition to her other associations, she can also be found depicted or represented within certain Tibetan scripture halls, where her presence is acknowledged and honored as part of ways for her. In Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's depiction of prajna paramita, her body is yellow and she has 4 arms. Of the 4 arms, the right hand holds a sword and the left hand is in the meditation mudra. The second right hand holds a mala prayer beads, and the left hand seems to be holding scripture. In some depictions, she is often shown holding a vajra in her right hand. In others, both hands are in the same mudra. There are different hand gestures. By visualizing this form of the Mother of Wisdom while meditating on the syllable, through thoughtful reflection and careful consideration, an individual has the ability to give rise to wisdom within themselves. Reciting and meditating on the syllable once brings merit as doing great prajna paramita. So this is actually a very important practice. Of course, when all the necessary conditions eventually come together in the future, we can revisit this. There isn't much more. Actually, I think that many of the pith instructions and teachings we currently have, these are indeed very important. Syllable alone. In the past, recited for us by the Dharma King, the wish-fulfilling jewel, he had all recite syllable 100 million times. At that time, he distributed his mala beads. Now, many of us, the mala beads we wear around our necks was actually a sadhana for white manjushri at that time. Afterwards, we kept on reciting the syllable as much as possible. When reciting, we chant 21 syllables in one breath, just like that. Very gently and slowly reciting the letter softly 21 times. That's the method. This is in practice instructions. This time, I didn't translate much. That text is mainly a Sutrayana practice. It's a practice that anyone can visualize. Here, the main focus is on practicing prajna paramita, the Mother of Wisdom, and then opening up wisdom. If one truly, because here the mainly refers to emptiness, to the emptiness of mind's nature, understand mind emptiness, all empty. This principle is in fact actually very easy to understand. Why does it mention upholding great prajna paramita here? Great prajna paramita refers to wisdom. Wisdom of ultimate truth is the meaning. Perhaps what we are talking about is to practice great prajna paramita and develop wisdom, opening wisdom, one will thoroughly understand the 4 types of perfection mentioned earlier. These 4 perfections discussed Mipham Rinpoche, they appear in the Abhidharma Kosha. This is without a doubt the absolutely most important thing for a person in life. To have the Dharma such as wisdom, to have wealth, abundance, and prosperity, as well to enjoy worldly pleasures and ultimately to attain true liberation. Some people think Buddhism talks about emptiness or discusses things. That's not actually the case. Among the 4 perfections, generally the authentic Dharma and liberation are related to the transcendent, while wealth and worldly pleasures are connected to this world. People who don't understand Buddhism say that Buddhism is about escaping from everything, that Buddhism doesn't talk about things like worldly pleasures. Buddhism, 4 elements empty. All 4 elements are empty. It's not that everything is empty at all. If everything were empty in every situation at all times, thus have I heard would not be said. So sometimes when people are not professionals or when their words seem correct on the surface, they ask questions by taking things out of context or in some cases raise certain challenges. As a professional or as someone who genuinely and deeply understands Buddhism, the ultimate philosophy of Buddhism is not like that. It is important to note that everyone should understand this as well. Then the 6th point in particular says, with wisdom, even if one is alone, in any situation, one will not be negatively affected or harmed by others. With skillful means, even if one's body is weak and small, the strong will not dare to insult you. It says that if you possess wisdom, even if you are all alone, you simply won't be harmed by others at all. Absolutely, completely safe in any way, in every possible sense. If you have appropriate and skillful means in this regard, such as even if you are very weak, fragile, or short, the strong still won't be able to bully you. I think this is also very important. Some people with wisdom, even if they are alone, or even if everyone starts to slander you, everyone starts to talk about you, you won't necessarily be trampled on by others for a long time. In the past, there was someone named Yan Ying during the time of the state of Qi. He should have been from Qi, and he was very skilled in debate, but he was extremely, extremely short. Once when he went to Chu, the people of Chu tried to humiliate him. Next to the main gate, they called a small hole, a dog hole or something like that. There was a small door, so he entered through it. When he arrived, he knew. He used his wisdom and said, if your country is a nation of dogs, then I can actually enter through the dog hole But if your country is indeed truly a heavenly nation, a truly great nation with a deep sense of honor, pride, dignity, and respect, as some would say, enter main gate. Later, when they eventually felt deeply humiliated and embarrassed, they finally allowed him to enter through the main gate. In this world, some people may seem a bit weak, but if you have wisdom, it doesn't matter, even if your body is small and weak. You know, some lamas in our institute, as you may have noticed, often say, if you're too short, it seems like others won't take you seriously. It would be better, at least for me personally, to be just a little bit taller sometimes. But I say that some great figures in the world are not necessarily all very tall. Of course, some do have a very dignified appearance. And at first glance, you can tell they are great people. Some exist. Some of them also possess their own unique wisdom, which guides their actions and decisions, allowing them to approach, for example, people like Napoleon and Alexander in the secular world, including Einstein. These people were not very tall. That day, on that warm June, they wanted to carefully weigh the body and take precise measurements, making sure to record every detail accurately as part of their examination process. At that time, I was 1.64 meters or so. I joked with them just a little, like Einstein, and they were both 1.64 meters tall. So, well, I'm actually just a little bit taller than those who are approximately 1.5 something meters. So I'm not really, they say Jack Ma is either 1.5 or 1.6 meters tall. Different accounts. But when measuring height, sometimes it seems a bit taller, sometimes a bit shorter. Even when I measure myself, it's not very accurate. Anyway, sometimes we tend to think to ourselves, just for a moment, maybe if I were just a bit taller, then maybe wouldn't I look more dignified? Thoughts like that come up. But sometimes, as long as your intelligence and wisdom can truly keep up with the situation and adapt as needed, there are many people in the world of all shapes and sizes, including those who are in fact rather short. In the end, they're all truly quite remarkable. For example, Deng Xiaoping was said to be about 1.57 meters tall or so, which isn't very tall either. So even if you're considered to be relatively weak in this world by most standards, in the eyes of others, or your body is short and physically frail, as long as you truly have wisdom, you can always turn things around at any time. Remember, you really can. He has a way, anytime. There may be a period when this person, including some of the great figures we see in the world, because the world is full of all kinds of changes, including the elements of earth, water, fire, and wind in our world, humans and non-humans. The harm that people can do to each other is still quite significant after all. Not just people. Sometimes what we call an enemy may seem to be a person, but in reality, sometimes it might not in fact actually be a person. It could be something else with consciousness. But no matter what, as long as you have wisdom, there's really no need to worry too much in this world. Honestly, just try to relax. Some people honestly think that I'm not good looking, I'm pretty poor right now. Honestly, my health is not good. I am a person of rather short stature, and to be honest, I don't appear to be in good health or look. In our world, there are many people who are self-deprecating and feel inferior, thinking to themselves, I look really quite unattractive. But in reality, if my heart is kind, or if I possess wisdom, I face anything. If I lack such wisdom at this moment, or if all the wisdom I think I have is actually perhaps maybe the wrong view, then no matter how much status, money, or good looks you have, all of these things really, in the end, besides causing regret for you and others, are of no use at all. So in our world, some people are intoxicated by certain things, thinking they are truly remarkable, intoxicated by their own looks, their own wealth, their own power, or their own intelligence. But in reality, when facing the affairs of the world, those with wisdom do indeed have certain abilities. Some people talk about high IQ or high adversity quotient. These things also have a certain logic to them. Next, it says, with wisdom, ever watchful in guarding the body, what can a host of enemies do? One who carries an umbrella or a parasol in hand is not troubled by falling rain, such as a sudden shower. If a person possesses wisdom, they can use their wisdom and intelligence to carefully protect and safeguard themselves from harm. No matter how many enemies gather together in groups, they still absolutely cannot harm you, no matter what, not at all. This includes, in our world, when we encounter all kinds of enemies and dangers, we should definitely be able to find a way ourselves. It's just like when we're out in the rain. If you're carefully holding an umbrella in your hands, then no matter how hard or intensely it rains outside, rest assured it definitely won't cause you any harm at all. You have nothing to worry about. So as Mipham Rinpoche said, isn't it mentioned in the letter of advice to a king, a single person with wisdom and insight can, even when faced with significant challenges, overcome even powerful and numerous enemies, just as the brilliant sun outshines and subdues all the stars. The meaning is, if you truly have wisdom, however powerful your opponents are, you will still find a way to overcome them. It's like the brilliant shining sun in the sky, warm and radiant, lighting up everything around. No matter how many countless bright stars there are, it overshadows them all. They absolutely won't be able to harm you in the slightest. So I think that it's actually the same situation in India. In the past, when a wise Pandita guarded the gate, if a truly wise person stood at the door, no matter how many non-Buddhists came before you, they would have no way to take advantage. So if we have wisdom, it really is the case, including our Buddhist Institute after parinirvana of Dharma King. And relatively speaking, we are still able to hold on now. In a certain sense, this relies on the wisdom of many people. If you don't have wisdom, perhaps in a certain sense, who really knows what things would have become by now, true for all. Many people here who study the Dharma, I am just also in life, have encountered various different kinds of disasters. There are some individuals who have unfortunately fallen and quite simply they just couldn't manage to get back up again, not at all. They never fully recovered at all and simply couldn't manage to get back up again. For most people, because we have indeed put our wisdom to use through countless times of falling down, we got up and have continually and unwaveringly maintained confidence in ourselves. That's why we are still alive today. Actually, in our current era, whether it's physically or even mentally, there are many strengths that can withstand all kinds of different external forces, whether humans or non-humans, or from sentient and non-sentient harms alike. You have persisted and are still studying, which I think is truly a sign of great courage. This includes some of our Dharma friends in the who have continued for 10, 20, or even many years. Everyone faces obstacles and conditions, both visible and invisible. There are many obstacles, hindrances, but I can hold on. This is also a sign of wisdom. It's like holding an umbrella in your hand so you don't get soaked by the rain. Today, let's discuss the final verse. Lacking the profound and genuine power of wisdom, one will inevitably become nothing more than a humble servant to others. Just like a great elephant is massive as a mountain, yet still made to serve others. For those who lack wisdom, it does not matter what actions you take or how much effort you put in, because without wisdom to guide you, others will start to use you, treating you like a servant. Just like in our worldly life here on earth, an elephant whose body is as huge as a mountain king, but because the elephant is rather dull-witted, it can't help it. In Nepal, India, people often carefully pierce its trunk in order to collect sap from inside the tree, beat it with heavy iron whips, and then carefully ride on its broad, strong back. This is very common. So sometimes if you, in your own experience, lack wisdom yourself, it's actually very easy to become a slave to others as well. It seems that back in the 1800s, there was a black man, 2.18 meters tall, but later on he was exclusively used for the purpose of breeding offspring and nothing else. At that time, black people were all transformed into slaves and servants. With servants, it was just like how we breed animals nowadays. They would look at someone's height and specifically go to other groups to breed with them. At that time, we humans didn't even consider black people as human beings. In fact, back then, they themselves had no opportunity learning wisdom, learning skills. If they had wisdom, actually, Their memory, cognitive abilities, and intelligence, as we know it, are remarkable, could absolutely match those of people with other skin colors. But sometimes, for various reasons, perhaps unexpected ones in certain circumstances or situations, there isn't an opportunity to learn wisdom, or due to a previous life. Even if they try to learn, they can't understand. There are all kinds of situations. If you lack wisdom in any situation, Mithran Rinpoche also said, the wealth of those without wisdom becomes shared by enemies. And in the Advice to Kings, how exactly does it put it? Those who are listless and do not study even after 100 years will make no progress. People who truly lack genuine interest, even after 100 long years, or even more, will not make any real progress at all. To attain the status of a wise person, you must study diligently and persevere. It's something like that. If you truly want to gain a bit of wisdom, or a lot of wisdom, at any point in your life, some is innate and some is learned later, day after tomorrow group, it is also gained through diligent study. Most wisdom depends on your own effort. If you don't study and remain extremely lazy all the time, just sitting around in a daze, not really doing much, even if you attend a monastery, or in some people have been here for years, but every day they're just hanging around, eating and waiting to die. In this case, there definitely won't be any real progress at all. So I think many of us hope to have wisdom. Once you lose wisdom, sooner or later, you'll end up being used by others like a servant. At that point, life doesn't really mean much, honestly. Like elephant, no matter how huge your body is, you're still being used by others. All right, let's stop here for now.
Om